I'm at that age, and I think before I would be afraid of if you ever like been through a season of your life, whether it's anxiety, it's depression, it's trauma you faced, when things start going really well, it's a bit scary. Like I haven't had many stressful days. What's going on? When is the other shoe going to drop? What's happening? So I'm at the age now where if I think about it like that, it's like, yeah, it's about time I can just have a week where nothing went wrong and I can just take a deep breath and relax, or I might see an increase in finances or something like that and not be scared first. I can take a deep breath and thank God and say it's about time. So that's what I'll name this season.
This is a Lirae Journey podcast on the McKissick Health Podcast Network. I'm Dr. Sherella Cupid, your host.
The Lirae Journey podcast is a space for Black women to choose themselves. For season 3, the theme is love and. We will continue the sister circle conversations with Black women from different stages of life within various roles regarding personal, community, and professional. The intention of the season is to continue and start conversations on the meanings, experiences, and practices around love in numerous areas. This is our grounding season. Because Lirae means love is real and eternal. So sis, let's practice love.
Before I introduce my guest, I'm going to give y'all an introduction to the podcast. So welcome back. This is season 3 of the podcast, and the theme is love and. We'll continue the sister circle conversations with Black women from different stages of life with various personal, community, and professional roles. The intention for this podcast is to continue and start conversations on the meanings, experiences, and practices around love in numerous areas, such as community, career, motherhood, sisterhood, and the list goes on. This is our grounding season because Lirae means love is real and eternal. So sis, let's practice love.
Ooh, love it.
I'm super excited. We have been sisters for a good long while now, and I'm always inspired and grateful when we have these one-on-one moments together. We recently started walking together, and in one of our conversations, I said to me, sometimes I have to walk and pray. So, and my sister Doc was like, I'm down, sis. Let me know when you're walking, yes. Right? So it's been really awesome to walk with her, talk with her, commune with her. So please introduce yourself, Dr. Tahira Mahdi.
Thank you. Yeah, that's me. And I'm a community psychologist. I'm an author, screenwriter, and I don't say adjunct professor anymore. I do think my professoring days are behind me, but I am a workshop facilitator. And what else do I do? A person who loves to play, and also a wife and a mother.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for introducing yourself. And what brings you to the sister circle space?
When I say I like to play, I love to have fun. And I realized I had to do a workshop one time when we had to name our values, and some genius person put fun on the list of values. And I was like, fun. Yes. So at the time it was number 2 because it was like authenticity and then it was fun. But fun has moved to number 1 for me. So that's what brings me to this space, because I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. And of course, talking to my sister Doc, I was like, that's always a good time. So yeah, let's have some fun.
Okay, that's beautiful. Let's have some fun, as you stated, right? So in thinking about fun, if you could name this season of your life, what title would you give it?
I would give it, it's about time. I'm at that age, and I think before I would be afraid of if you ever like been through a season of your life, whether it's anxiety, it's depression, it's trauma you faced, when things start going really well, it's a bit scary. Like I haven't had many stressful days. What's going on? When is the other shoe going to drop? What's happening? So I'm at the age now where if I think about it like that, it's like, yeah, it's about time I can just have a week where nothing went wrong and I can just take a deep breath and relax, or I might see an increase in finances or something like that and not be scared first. I can take a deep breath and thank God and say it's about time. So that's what I'll name this season.
That's a word. It's about time.
Word. Yes.
Hey, that's beautiful. I appreciate the backstory behind it. And connected to your It's About Time season, how are you defining love in this season?
Mm. Okay, so it stems from my research. um, my research is about community membership with the initial concept I was studying from the sense of community definition and theory, that membership is something that has to be earned so that one feels the right to belong. But when I studied membership with the go-go music community, which is a cultural community, what they said and talked about in terms of membership was they just totally did away with that term, first of all. But they talked to me about love and support. And first of all, being of a community, which is the conceptual framework that I developed, called being of the community, that stands in contrast to having membership. So membership, something one has, of the community is something one is. But they talked about knowing that people are in community with them based on how they show them love and support. So showing love, that makes me think of love as an action word. So that's something that other people do that gives us a feeling. And I define it mostly by the absence of it. So it is something that I'm feeling from other people. That makes me feel supported. Um, that's the best I can do for definition right now, but I can definitely lean into knowing when I feel the absence of it.
That's really insightful and connected to knowing love by the feeling of the absence of it. Is there anything that you had to unlearn concerning community and love?
Great question. I think unlearning love as just a noun and recognizing that people will tell you they love you. And I knew that before, but with me being a community psychologist and being trained to work with communities and not even necessarily in a formal education, they didn't train us to work with people in community. I had to learn that from people in the humanities who worked with communities. And seeing that people who are in a cultural community talked about knowing when someone's in the community with them, having love and showing them love, I realized that's what was missing from a formal education when people are telling you to use a community basically as an experiment, as a resource to get your own degree, to learn what you want to learn. You take that and you go. You can write an article, you can look really important over here, but what is a community really getting from that? And then people who are of a community are constantly telling us that, like, what do we need you for? Or, what are you really doing for us? It has to be more than money. And I've worked with a lot of people who talk about earning a community's trust. Well, that trust never came up in my research. They talked about from just the station that some communities are put in society, there is like, what is trust? I'm not going to trust I don't trust my neighbor really. It's like I have to watch people in what they do. And that's how I can learn. And it's still not trust. It's like we can be in community together, but I'm watching academics pursue trust. And it's not what communities are looking for. It's like, no, I'm not going to trust you. You're not one of us. No, I'm not going to trust you. Stop looking for it. But what are you still doing? Because if I'm asking you to trust me, I'm looking for something from you. I likened it to romantic relationships. If somebody tells me they're dating me, but I know the whole time they're just looking for ways to get me to trust them, then is this real? You're just trying to get me to trust you. But if I'm coming to someone or someone's coming to me just offering love, I don't know that unless it's something that they're doing, these actions that they're showing me what love is. So that's something I had to unlearn. And I started likening these relationships from university to community with romantic relationships, just saying, what if we were talking about such and such here? And then that brought me love on as soon as some people hear the word love, they automatically go to romantic relationships based on where they are in their lives. But I've learned to look at it almost all the exact same way. It's a relationship, person to person or community to community. What are you showing me? So that's what I had to unlearn.
So I don't know if this is going to be like a parallel response, but in thinking about reimagining the way you as a researcher work with community, right? And we know for us as folks who represent both marginalized backgrounds and also privileged backgrounds, right? Like being in the 3% of the population that have earned a PhD, right? So we recognize the ways in which our positionality may be unique to others. What have you learned about love concerning community?
That people feel. I didn't know it was 3%. I'm sorry, you did. You blew my mind with 3%.
I
Like,
think it's only
ouch.
3% of the population, if I'm not mistaken. I can double check, but it's a really small percentage of the population that has earned a PhD. And I don't know if it's 3% of like, I'm gonna have to double check what that 3% is, but I know
it's still a very small percentage. Because I know it was like 25% with a college degree or something like that, but it's still and that may be more because I saw that statistic a long time ago. But one of the things I also learned about that and about community is that the university and the academics and whatever that is not only its own community, but its own universe. Everything works, with me, especially being an adjunct. No, not even especially. Everything I've done, I always felt like with academics, I felt like an outsider. Like I'm not that I don't belong, and not in that term. It's just that I get that I'm different from you all. And that's cool because I have something to bring. I have a way to improve how you do things, how we all do things. But for a community, because that university is still a community that's coming out, we're bringing our community to try to work with your community, seeing themselves as a community, but they totally are. They've been socialized into it. Where they're telling them that you have to earn certain things, just like they want to earn the trust of the community over here, which they didn't even define. All they know is these people are different from us. But the community don't give a damn about these degrees and your schedule for the year and all that stuff. Is like, so what? Because this is real life out here, but that university is existing and that community is existing to serve itself. It has to perpetuate itself. But these people are fighting for survival. So it's like, I don't care about, this damn, all this stuff that we care about that's so, whatever for academics in this university, whatever, means nothing out here. So even being an adjunct where I'm like, it's not even a foot in and a foot out. I felt like, okay, great. I don't have to deal with this. I can come into the university, teach classes, and still feel like I'm outside of all this. And I think that made me a better professor because my priorities were different. I'm training you if you want to be a community psychologist, which I did encourage my students to do, but I'm saying that from a person who is of the community that you're saying you're trying to serve. This is my family you're talking about. And that's how I approached it even when I was getting the PhD. So I don't even remember the original question, but yeah, all that.
I think that's beautiful. Okay. The fact that you said when thinking about the university space and communities that are studied, they tend to be marginalized communities, right? I remember I took a class on the African American community and education with Dr. Mavis Sanders.
Oh.
And she was saying how historically and contemporarily that communities that have less access, that are marginalized, those are the ones that tend to be studied. She was like, when is the last time, for example, you saw a research study that studied the folks that are like wealthy and the elite? You don't tend to see that, right?
Not so hands-on. Yeah, I've seen studies that'll look at the tax brackets, the income, the demographics of race and stuff like that, but they're not all in their faces like, what do you think about the such and such? Yeah.
Exactly. So like you said, that not hands-on research and you saying like, I enter into space And I realized that the communities that are being studied, like that's my family. I'm a part of those communities, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
in thinking about us as researchers and the work that we do,
Mm-hmm.
how do you make sure that the spaces that you are in are practicing or reflecting or being mindful of how you are defining love?
Hmm. Just by speaking on it. And if I see something, fortunately, I've been working with different people who work in the humanities. They call them humanists. I keep saying people who work in the humanities. I don't know the technical term,
I
but
call them humanists. I call myself humanist sometimes.
some, okay, humanists. So it's good because I feel like they, especially at the university that I work through, are the types of people who've been studying this for years now, and they have that intention to work with community. There's self-reflection there. There's listening to the community. There's so many other things that are that they're learning and trying to teach other people or attempting or actually teaching other people who are at the university space. And because of their intention and that what I can feel from them, the spaces I'm in now, I don't feel that danger of what I used to feel like before. Um, and I know it's because of those specific people. And even it's my job. I'm a program evaluator. That's part of what I do as a community psychologist. So part of my job is to ask communities or community members that they work with, how is this working from you? How is this different? What has this experience been like? In having them say, they'll name specific people. So it's not the university itself. It's not the whole group of graduate students or professors. They always name these same specific people and say how those particular people really meant something to them, really work with them well. And that's something I can lean into. It's the individuals. It's not the whole community of the university or the institution, of course, of the university. They're still looking at them as like, there is no love there. And we can't fool ourselves into thinking that there would be. But from individuals, they do recognize they can be in community with someone and share love with someone.
That's beautiful. I appreciate that. I can also uplift your experience in regards to particular individuals in university spaces that we have had opportunities to collaborate with, being mindful
Mm-hmm.
of, like you said, being of the community and
Mm-hmm.
practicing love with the community, and also some of them like explicitly waiting for the invitation, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
the expectation just because, oh, like I'm from the university and I have this title and this degree that like you must let me come and extrapolate data from you.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's like
Yeah.
waiting for that invitation to be like, okay, cool. Like, you're cool. I think in our previous podcast, Sister Dr. Hill, when we talked about the cookout, like who's invited
Mm-hmm.
to this space,
Right.
right?
Well, and that's the thing about it is like people, like individuals toss out invitations and just like a real cookout, it's like, I didn't tell you you can invite this person to because a cookout is usually hosted by, there's a community of people or there is a family. That's what that is. So you might do it. Like I might feed you, but sometimes it's like, don't get it twisted. I'm gonna feed you because we got extra food. Sure, come on, have a seat. You can be, but that still don't mean that and so it's so many levels to that that is crazy. But one of the other things is that whole thing of trust coming to what I see from the university, and that's something that I'm still trying to get them to get away from. But I realize I'm going to have to just keep explaining my research in different ways through workshops and facilitation of this whole thing of trust, because the university, people from universities, even as good as they work, they're still looking for trust. Can you trust me? So me, that's me coming to you with my hand out saying, give me your trust. You're still asking them for something. What are you coming with is what I'm saying. You need to focus on coming to this community with love. If you don't have it, guess what? They're not feeling it. And you're wondering, why don't they trust us? Because they're not feeling the love. What are your actions do? You need to make sure your actions are showing the love, like a romantic relationship. If I'm coming to you saying, give me your trust, you come to me asking me for something, what are you giving me? give me love, then that's going to happen. The trust will be there, or at least it'll be some kind of exchange of love, whatever it is. Trust comes down the line. But if you're making that this your whole central mission, I need to get you to trust me. To me, that's some con artist type stuff. I don't like that. That's what con artists do. I need to gain this person's trust. What can I do to do that? For me. So I'm working on that with the people who are still doing great things, or attempting to do their best to make sure that the university is doing supposedly its job in making communities better or sharing resources or something. But stop going to them looking for something. And when you're looking for their trust, that's you trying to get something from them.
That's a heavy one.
It's a lot. I compare everything to romantic relationships. So when you talk about love, it's not just the romantic relationships. It's like everybody. Like, yeah, let's talk about love. And it's all the same for me.
Yeah. So in thinking about that, right, I can say for me, the way in which I operate in relationship building across many contexts is developing and maintaining a strong foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, in regards to them coming and having the expectation or the desire to receive something, they can say, no, we don't want you here, right? Like,
Yeah, first of all,
right? Like you stated at the beginning, like we're trying to go day to day, live, right? We know the society that we live in now in regards to inflation, et cetera. And thinking about the ways in which, like, how do we make sure as individuals that we're mindful to build something that's authentic? And if it doesn't have that outcome of getting research, then that's a part of the process. Like if we're going to say these communities are central and sacred and we're not being exploitative, then going with the mindset of you can spend all this time, but the community may not want their community studied, right? They may not. That's not the relationship that they want.
What, right? And what are we getting from this? It's like we know we hot, but like all you got to do is look at social media. People from the beginning of whenever study what underprivileged so-called Black communities do, and then now that becomes a thing. Like we're being totally watched and criticized the whole time, but then it becomes, oh, this is a trend thing to do. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. That does. I don't necessarily liken everything to a romantic relationship, but what I can say that I often just liken things to a friendship. Like, do I trust myself to be friends with you? Like, has your actions reflected that you care about me as a human being? Like, outside of whatever our connection is and our title is to each other, are you loving me just from a human perspective? Like, what does support look like in this context?
Yeah.
And if it feels like you're just expecting me to give you something, then you're right. It does feel like con artists. Like, okay, like you just want to like, it feels like a parasitic connection.
It is, but I feel the same way about romantic relationships. Every time I think about it, because I remember at one point in time, I did say, well, maybe it's not the same. But as I thought through it, no, I came right back around to like, what connection do I have with my husband? Why is that a strong connection? Well, we were friends first. Okay, so I got to watch him for years. I got to watch him in different contexts. How does he act in this situation? How does he act in this situation? And then we just kind of got together because we did, but there was a respect for one another, a like for one another. He never came to me asking me for anything. Not unless it was like, hey, you want to go to the movies or something like that. But it was the support that he gave me. I had to break two. It was two different times I had to break a date with him because I was working on my dissertation. And I felt bad. And I know dating free, I'm single, so I broke it with somebody else. Oh, well, you did that. And they were mad. His response was, you're working really hard, and I respect that. Like, I can't wait to take you out as a doctor or something like that. And I was like, that's what I'm talking, that's what I'm saying. And that's how he comes at, is not what can I what can I get from you? It's always, how can I support you? And it's something I feel. So it's like, and it makes me go, see, that's why I F with him. And to this day, like we've been married for like 5 years, and still I'm like, see, that's why I F with him. He on my side. That's what I'm saying. And that's it. It's romantic. We married and stuff. Is the same feeling of I'm being supported as a human being. He likes me. He likes to hang out with me. Wow. That's different than love, I guess. I mean, I'll tolerate you because I love you. I mean, I guess, it's different. So I feel like he likes me. Wow. What a concept.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. It does, because I feel as though, like, in regards to us, like when we are going through certain things or when we are working on projects, it's like, okay, like, sis, like, how can I be supportive of you? Or I can
Yeah.
support you, like, in this way, or after the semester, we can go ahead and do X, Y, and Z, right? So I would agree. It's like showing up and asking that person, like, how can I support you? Like, what do
Yeah.
you need from me, or what do you desire from me that I also have the desire to offer you because I love you?
Right.
Not with the
Yeah.
expectation that, like, because I showed up for this person, like, they're going to return it, right? That's not a
Yeah.
tick for tack.
It doesn't even enter my mind, and not even loving you because I like you. I know, and there's a difference there too. And because how some people, like, you're supposed to love everybody like Jesus said, or whatever it is, like, I love my people, so I'm going to do such and such. It don't feel like that. It feels like fun. It feels like thank you. You know what? Or I like what you're doing. I love the fact, oh my gosh, you got a podcast? Like, yo, what can we do? You want me to tell my friends about it? Like, it's just an excitement that comes with that love and the like, but that comes from support. It's like so many things that go into it that it's a universal fit for me. And I think I had to grow into that. I'm sure I didn't feel like this like 10 years ago, but just life experience and all the things I've been taken through and taken myself through that probably got me to this point. So even if somebody doesn't quite feel like that, we just probably have different experiences, and that's fine, which is why I'm glad you're asking these questions so we can hear. I can't wait to hear everybody else's like answers to this. I'm going to be so tuned in, like, yo, tell me what you think.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. And you said that perhaps you grew to this space, right? So in thinking
Mhm.
about the ways in which we grow throughout our life, how we mature, what would you offer younger sisters concerning community? Like, what advice, what offerings, what recommendations, what questions would you offer younger sisters concerning community?
I would say, first of all, it's tough. It's tough out there. I know what it's like to not feel love from community, and I know what it's like to feel it from community very unexpectedly. And even if we come from communities, first of all, if our community is Black, um, in matter of fact, we belong to many different communities. So, say it's a Black community, that community has already been stereotyped because it's a Black community. Um, but a lot of times, when we're taught to look at things as, or communities or groups of people, as what is wrong with them, how can they be helped? What is their risk factor? We're looking at them in terms of lack, but leaning into that support is one of the reasons that I wrote my book. This is not how it was supposed to go, because there is a young woman who has to move back home. As soon as she moves back home, immediately somebody who she used to know from high school, who also had lives with his mom, becomes her friend, and she's like, oh, okay, I have a friend, I just moved back home. Then she gets to look at all the other people in the neighborhood who may also be in their early 30s who had to move back home, how these people look out for one another, how somebody else might look at this community as a researcher and say, people smoke weed a lot, people drink a lot, they hang out at the bar, they live with their parents, and they're 32 years old. What's wrong with them? But what she was seeing was in a depression, and this was based on my own experience. I was already living at home, but just kind of feeling like, oh, I live at home, I'm this age, but seeing like, first of all, I'm not alone. Second, I'm being supported. People are not looking at me like, you graduate from college and you don't have a job. No, this person doesn't have a job. This person does. This person works part-time. This person was, there's so many different things, but people aren't always looking at each other as what you don't have. People may talk all they want on the internet, oh, you doing this, oh, you don't get your money up. There's so many people who are not thinking that at all. They want community and love. And I was shown that. And that's what I want to tell young sisters is like, pay attention to when you feel like people are just supporting you because you're just there. You're people, and that happens so many times, and we can overlook it, especially looking at social media for all the good things it gives us. It'll probably be clips from shows like these that can make us feel good. And then the next thing we scroll to is somebody telling us, you should be at this point in your life or something like that. But it's so many people who are willing to tell you, you all right? You want to drink? You okay? You know what I'm saying? Or if you don't drink, just willing to be with you and share some love because we're a community, period. And I experienced that and I wanted to write about it. So I'm glad that I believe that it came across in the book that I wrote, fictionalizing such a story.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. So in thinking about telling younger sisters to be mindful of the ways in which they have community, in writing your book, did anything like resurface where you're like, dang, I wish I was more mindful of this when I was younger, or I'm grateful that I was mindful of this when I was younger, right? So anything that came back to mind since you said, this was connected to your real lived experience?
I think that in many times hindsight is just going to be 2020. We not saying we can't know it at the time, but sometimes it's good that we don't. So when I reflect on the experience that kind of started this thought process to write the book, when I look back on that summer when I graduated from college, I was already an older student and I didn't have a job. I was depressed. That's what I know for a fact because I remember coming out of the depression. So I know I was depressed. However, now that I've gotten the PhD, I'm where I wanted to be in life, all that stuff, when I look back on it, all I see is the fun and love from the community. That's all I see. But I know for a fact I was depressed because I remember being depressed and coming out of it. So sometimes you won't see it in the time. Time has to pass by. You have to learn more things to look back on something and go, oh. And I used to hear older people in my family say this about pictures of us. When I was I 18? No. I was in my early 20s and my first book had just come out, God Laughs Too. And I remember there's an article on me in the Washington City paper. So this was like big, whatever, a photographer came out to take my picture and everything. And I saw the picture in the paper. It's like 22, 23, something like that. And I thought I looked old in the picture. I was like, oh my gosh, look at me. I look so old. And even one of my male friends, had to be a man, or say something like this, and was like, you're not 19 anymore, T. And I was like, I guess so. I guess I'm old. Look at that picture. I was so baby faced and cute. But, compared to now, I'm like, I wish I would look like that now. But you can't appreciate it at the time. And I used to remember my mother saying that. She look at her old pictures and I'm looking through her old photo album and she say, can you believe I thought I was fat here? Or can you believe I didn't like my hair in this? But I'm like, are you crazy? Like, what is wrong with you? I did the same exact thing. We can now look back on pictures and say, I didn't appreciate what I look like at the time. And that's just one example when we're looking at ourselves, but even our experiences, you won't appreciate it until later. It's sad, but it's the truth. You won't. And that's just life.
So the power of self-reflection. And before we segue to the next question, you brought up the fact that you can look back now and knew that you experienced an episode or period of depression, but you weren't aware of it because you have fun in community, right? So I'm curious,
about like the conversations that we're having now and the ways in which mental illness shows up differently based on someone's background, right? So like, what does it mean for a Black woman to be depressed? And like, what would you offer in thinking about that now?
There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. And I liken depression. Now I don't feel like I don't use the term, but I call it the pit. Like I'll say I'm teetering on the edge of falling into the pit. And I remember saying it out loud one time, and there was another Black woman nearby. I was like, oh God, the pit. Like I know. So she knew too. And I'm like, oh, you know what I mean. Um, but there is a light. So if I'm in a pit, I can look up and see the light. And sometimes it feels like a dark tunnel. There's a light at the end of it though. So if I can just keep going, like you go, I'm going to have to go through this, but keep going toward that light. And then sometimes I have to, on those days when I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, I'm like, why am I feeling like this? It's like because you're in the light. That's why. You're used to being in the tunnel. Now you're in the light. And sometimes the light just looks like I'm going for a walk today, or I had pizza last night and I don't normally eat pizza, but I was treating myself. And it's something so mundane, but yeah, that's something you do when you're just in the light and you're chilling. And it's not a day that you're depressed. It's so many things that I want to tell, but I know our experiences are different. And at one time when I was late teens, early 20s, the way that I dealt with depression was going out with my friends. I was never at home. So sometimes when you see people, oh, they always out, oh, they always on vacation, they're always doing this, sometimes they're depressed and that's how they're coping. You're looking at them, they're playing the role of somebody who's living it up. But if you, not for everybody, but for a lot of people, if you were happy within yourself, you could just stay home every once in a while and just be chilling. I didn't like being at home. I was depressed at home. My home circumstance was just weird. And I had to get out of there. But it looked like, oh, I party all the time. I'm having fun. So it's going to look different. And we can always check up on our friends. People say check up on them, but many times the friend is going to say, oh, I'm all right. They'll kind of wave you off. Oh, I'm fine. But then you have other people who they're fine, but then they're going to make up oh yeah, but my toe hurts and blah, blah, blah. So it's like, because I have another friend like that. Like she's always like happy, but like it's something. So I'm like, okay, but you can still check up on people because of that love. That love lets people get things off their chest, and then you feel better and okay. But you did your job checking up. So
okay,
for the most part.
Connected to having conversations and checking up on folks, is there a conversation that we're not having concerning community, our aunties, our mothers, that you believe that we should be having?
Yes. That's funny. My first book addressed that. God Laughs Too, Incidents in the Life of a Black Chick was my first book. And I wrote that when I was 20, about a 21-year-old character. And the reason I wrote that book back then was because all these, I'm calling them, we can call them aunties now because it's a general age range of women, but people who had gotten to a point in their lives where things were going well for them. And then they look at young women and start trying to give them advice about what they should and shouldn't do. Don't drink, don't smoke, don't do this, don't do that. And they weren't acknowledging their struggles in life, how you got to where you are. If you were born a perfect angel, congratulations. But what is that doing for me? That's not doing anything for me, or just not understanding that generations are even different. So I'm writing that as a young woman when I wrote the first book. As a 20-year-old who said, these older women don't understand what I'm going through in my generation. So I wrote a book, fictionalized my own life to say, this is what we're going through, listen to us. So that was more like literary fiction because there was a point to it. I want to draw you into what young Black women are going through right now. And even in the book that I wrote now, I kind of wasn't trying to say anything about it, except for fictionalize my dissertation research, but it still ended up talking about mothers and daughters and how they mother's like, oh, I'm trying to protect her. Why can't she understand? I'm just trying to protect her. Why won't she do the right thing? And it's like, okay, but are you gripping her too tight? Okay, how does genetics play a role in this? And then the mother has to reflect on, okay, this is how my mother was. I'm trying to be so much different from my mother. I don't want my daughter to be like me. So I'm keeping her on this path. But she ended up running wild anyway. Okay, so there's so many things that I want people to, the aunties and the grandmothers, we're not paying attention to the positives of a generation. We look at the negatives. The music is trash. I'm saying that as fact. The music today is trash. But, it's like, okay, I'll let you tell me why you like this or any other things that you're going through that you want to get off your chest. And I don't think these days we think to ask it because the people these days are always on the internet telling their whole thoughts, and we're not used to knowing everything that's on everybody's mind all the time, but that's literally what the internet does. You want to read everybody's thoughts? Here you go. And that's just weird, but we don't have that conversation on why that could be a good thing. How is this affecting you? If you think it's affecting you negatively, why do you keep doing it? So get off social media then. Why won't you do that? Oh no, if I'm promoting a book, oh, you must have all these accounts. Oh no, you got to do this. And people tell me now you got to make TikTok videos. No TikTok videos. No. I thought about it for a second. In a minute, I said, okay, well, what am I going to wear? Doing this. No, I'm a different generation. I put a sign in my yard. Okay, that's how I'm advertising. It's just certain things I'm just not going to do. But I still want to have the conversation with younger women. Why do you do this? Feeling right now because I want to know at human to human, love to love, what support do you need? That's what's important. So I think that's a conversation we're not having is really trying to understand. We think we know and we can point out differences, but we're not really trying to understand. And usually never were.
He said
That's how I felt.
They were never trying to understand.
I mean, that's why I wrote my first book, because I was like, nobody's trying to understand what I'm going through. They're just trying to tell me what not to do. Like, you don't know what I'm going through. You know how I'm feeling. This is how my depression. And I'm just realizing now, I wrote 2 books about depressed women. One is 21, one is 32. They're both depressed, and we see how it plays out in their lives in different ways.
Right. So in thinking about having conversations, right, I would say probably within the last 7 or 8 years, it's become more common for us to talk about mental health, mental wellness, mental illness as a part of the general norm.
Mm-hmm.
Our generations, not necessarily our mamas, our aunties, and them generations, right? So even though we want to have these conversations, I'm wondering about like what language, like literally, like what lingos do we need in order to open up the space to have these conversations? Because I don't know what it's like to be from the civil rights or the Black Panther generations, for example. But I'm sure as Black women who are in their Black womanness, experience things that I can learn and glean from, and we can have these intergenerational conversations and try to understand each other. But I feel as though some of the language isn't there since we're comfortable with saying like, oh, you know what, mama or auntie, I feel depressed today. Oh, I'm in the pit. Child, what you mean you're in the pit?
Right.
So I'm just wondering like, what lingos potentially like would we need or should we try to have, right? To open up the space to have these conversations. Because I think it is a little bit difficult because they weren't socialized that way, but we are being socialized that way, right? So even with having the desire to learn like from them to give us the real. And not like, oh, I'm here now. Like, look where God had brought me from. No, like, tell me what God brought you through. Tell me that tunnel, okay?
Yes.
I want to know that tunnel, not just the light that you're in right now.
Right.
But that tunnel, because it helps. So I'm just, that's your responses makes me wonder, like, what language, what lingo do we need in order to, like, create those spaces so we can have those intergenerational conversations of understanding?
You know what? I don't think it needs to be a lingo, but it might work if if I acknowledge the fact that if I used to bring up depression to several women in my family, they're like, depressed. Like, I ain't had time to be depressed. I had children to feed. I had to do this. I had to do that. You know, your great great grandmother used to do the blah, 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 blah. I was like, okay, okay, okay. Never mind. Never mind. So I think now I would approach it as acknowledging, like, hey, I'm realizing how privileged I am to be able to feel sad or feel depressed and acknowledge that and talk to a professional about it, because I know you didn't have the space necessarily to do that. Or you can acknowledge the women, the long line of Black women you come from who didn't have the space to do that. Like, wow, I'm imagining how hard they worked and how tired they felt, and they still had to keep going. And I can take a day off. And I'm really grateful for that. And maybe like, have you been through anything that made you, wish you could just take a day off, but you couldn't do it? Kind of asking them, like, um, what were the days like when you just wanted to go lay down and you couldn't just go lay down? Like, what was that like? So I think kind of what they want is that acknowledgement of, this is how hard you had to work. Even just, I think about like my mentor going through the PhD program, where if I'm doing drafts of my dissertation and somebody, all they got to do is highlight a paragraph and type a little thing on the side, I can make a correction. It's all in the same document. Then I print it out. I'm talking to somebody who typed his dissertation out on a typewriter. And if you got to change this whole page, you just got to go back and type. Like, it's just so many other things where people from older generations did work like twice as hard as we did to do certain things. And I think they just want that acknowledgement. And we're just like, oh, I'm always like, oh, they don't understand. Well, let me understand what they went through. Like, tell me about what that was like. So, how was this? How was that? I'm asking my mom. So, you used to take a bus from this place to go to Coppin State University and take these classes, and then you had to work at the mall, security mall, whatever. So it's just so many things that if I'm asking her about it, and you ask older people about their lives, they'll tell you. But it's just acknowledging what they went through to get us to where we are, because that's how they feel. I did all this so you could go to sleep one day when you just felt like it. I can say, oh, I'm gonna do that tomorrow and totally mean it, but they didn't have that option. So I think acknowledging that and asking them to lean into it and talk about it would get us to that, some kind of happy medium.
Okay. What I'm hearing from you is the words will be acknowledgement and ask the
Mm-hmm.
questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what would it
Mm-hmm.
mean for us to acknowledge the experience and ask a question in order to listen and learn?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you. So
Excellent
considering,
question.
huh,
I said it was an excellent question. I'm
Thank
like,
you.
dang, yeah, how do we talk to them?
Because yeah, I feel like if I use honestly the word depression with some, they're like, "Girl, what? What you?" So
Exactly.
that's why I asked in
No.
regards to lingo. Like, okay, acknowledge. Okay, I can remember that lingo. Acknowledge. I acknowledge that you felt that way. Can you?
And I know the term lay down. Like in my family, it's go lay. And because I remember my grandmother telling my aunt or my mother something like, I just want to lay down. And my grandmother said, think of all them days you were at work and you couldn't go lay down. You got the time, because like the family was together. And my grandmother was like, go to my room and lay down. Like, think of all the times you want to lay down and you can't. The family's together, you'll be fine. Go in my room and lay down. So I'm thinking about times when you want to just lay down.
I
And
think
that's
that's
not
the
even
difference.
correct English, but
It's
yes,
our
lay
English,
down.
okay? I think
That's
that's
what
the
I'm saying. It's
difference.
our lingo. Go lay down. And I say this to my friends all the time, girl, go lay down. Like, I know what that is. Lay down. So I like that lingo for getting into
Okay.
that.
Okay. Listen, we're going to circle back to that. That's beautiful.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so considering your primary roles, right? You shared that you're a wife, you're a daughter, you're a researcher, you're a community psychologist, you're an evaluator. What is a reminder to you to circle back in order to feel grounded?
Wanting to lay down. let me say. Um, I've learned to be in prayer all day, every day, and then in all thy ways acknowledge God. And sometimes I forget. Sometimes it is like going through something and just forgetting to acknowledge God. And maybe I have to say something to somebody else. And I have been blessed with not just my mother, but now a husband who will just pray right there with me. Will just like sometimes I'm thinking I'm not complaining, but I'm kind of venting. But to have several times where my husband grabbed my hand and bowed his head and said, "See, don't do the cry." But but just to know, it's like, you know what? None of this stuff that you can stress about. Some stuff does matter. There's some stuff that be like, mess don't matter in the long run. I remember seeing my aunt basically on her deathbed, and her making a comment to somebody else who was talking about something. And she said, "And don't none of it matter." Like, knowing she's at her end and somebody's talking about it was working with something, whatever they were talking about. And she was like, "And don't none of it matter." And I'm like, she knows at the end of her life, like, it don't matter. So if I can keep that in my head for some things do, because I'm like, I have goals, I have things I want to do. And you know what? If don't none of it matter, I may as well do what I want to do anyway. So that's the other thing. Like this life can be some mess sometimes. Like, I'm gonna do what I want to do. That's what reminds me to stay grounded, be connected to God all I can.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. You may, I believe that you already started to answer this question, but this is going to be one of the questions that I ask all of our guests.
Okay.
How do you know someone loves you?
Oof. I feel it. I feel it. It just, how do I? They just, a lot of times it's just stuff they do, and it's the little things. It's not the big things. It's not something you bought me. It's not the whatever. It's the, I came to your house and you gave me food. It's little things. And it is a feeling because, like I said, I know the absence of it. And sometimes if I'm feeling something weird from somebody or a certain type of energy, or it feels like I've kind of learned, unfortunately, I had to go through bad experiences to say, this person is saying this to me, but it's not being said with love. Or like I said, I trust the absence of that feeling. Um, I think that's it. I can trust the absence of it. Other than that, it's not like I'm trying to gauge from everybody, are they loving me? That's not, I'm usually trying to make sure I love them. I'm showing love to them. But I know that absence of, yeah, somebody does not showing it or offering it.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And connected to that, how do you know when you're loving yourself the most?
When I do what I want to do. When I make the choice, the deliberate, like when I made the decision, because like LinkedIn is like what is the professional profile. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'll be the community psychologist here, and then I'll be the author somewhere else because this book has cursing and smoking, and people won't understand. When I put my book up on LinkedIn and was like, here's my this, here's my that, like, this is me. If you don't love me, if you don't like me, you can unfollow. You ain't never got to talk to me again. I won't miss you. Bye. But my people, I have to trust that. And I'm loving myself by saying, be you. You're going to find your people. And that's why my love affirmation, you will find other kind that have been in search of you. There's some people out there who are looking for me because they're working with people who don't understand them and the way they work. And when they encounter me, they're like, I can work with her. She gets it. So me keeping those people in mind, even though I don't even know who all of them are, I have to trust and love myself Me loving myself means I trust God also to get what I need, the professional connections, whether it's because of being an author, a fiction author, or being an evaluator or researcher, whatever. I'll find who I need and just kind of sitting with that and loving myself and know enough to know I'm enough, I'm adequate, I do excellent work. Like I make sure I do excellent work in excellence. I bathe in excellence every morning and I work in excellence. So I stand on my work. Like that's all I got to go on. I work by contract. So I got to do good work so you can recommend me to somebody else, or I wouldn't have no money at all. I got to work in excellence so I can sell these books. I ain't no half stepping over here. So me standing in that and loving myself. And like I said, it's about time at this age, I'm in my 40s. It's about time I recognize, no, you don't worked hard. This is what you do. This is who you are, and stand on that. And it's may just only have happened in 2024, but standing on what I know about myself.
That's beautiful.
Mhm.
That's really beautiful. And you just mentioned that you're an evaluator, you're a researcher. Are there any current projects or services that you have that you can share with our audience?
Sure. Well, I'm a fiction author. My books are for sale. You can download an e-version of it. I love talking to groups of women. So if anybody wants to discuss the book in terms of either a book club or even a group of researchers, any level, any whatever, I'm willing to discuss this book in terms of community love, Black women's lives, intergenerational drama, sexual agency, anything like that. Then, me as an evaluator, I evaluate programs. I'm also a great workshop facilitator based on my research in the conceptual framework of being of the community. So I work with people who work with people. So I also talk to different groups of people who work with nonprofits, universities, businesses. When they do their community work, when I do workshops with them, it helps them do their work, just kind of shift perspective a little bit so that they can find more possibilities in their own work.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Mhm.
So, how can folks find you? You said you're interested, you're open to it, right? What's your social media? What's your
Yes.
website? Can you tell us?
Let's see. The community psychologist website is tahiramahdi.com. I'm sure you'll see my name on this. So yeah, that.com. The author website is Tahira Chloe Mahdi.com. That's my middle name. And then let's see, on Instagram, at Doc Tahira 99. There is an author page on Facebook, and that's about it. My X page, I don't really use. I just know I have to have it because it's a social media website. But yeah, follow me on there. I don't post much.
Okay. And is there anything else that you didn't share, offer in this space that you would like to say before we close?
No. Thank you so much. I would like to be thankful to you and thank you so much for the work that you're doing. It's so important. Can't wait to support and can't wait to hear what all your other guests say. So yeah, drop a line if there's like comment space under this. And I love doing that kind of conversation also.
Okay, so hit her up in the comments.
Yeah.
Okay. That's beautiful. So thank you again, Dr. Tahira Mahdi, for joining us today on the Lirae Journey podcast. So as always, how we'll end, how we'll sign off is a reminder. Love is real and eternal. So sis, let's practice love.
Amen.
Hey sis, subscribe, comment, and leave a 5-star review if you enjoy the show. To encourage other sisters on their journey, share the show with them and tag @Lirae Journey on Facebook and Instagram. I'll see you in the chats. Listen to the Lirae Journey podcast on all platforms and follow us on social media @Lirae Journey. You can also find us online at podcast.mckissickhealth.com. That's podcast.mckissickhealth.com. So come on in.
Grab the must-read novel, This Is Not How It Was Supposed to Go. Author Tahira Chloe Mahdi put her foot in her whole psychology Ph.D. into a juicy drama about daughters, mothers, sexual freedom, community love, and the wildest summer ever. This is Not How It Was Supposed to Go in bookstores now.